county.
We apologise, sir.
We just play records till 8, 9. When do we finish?
I'm not drunk. I've had a couple of drinks. I'm not drunk. Oh, yeah.
I'm John Fox, back with part 2 of my chat with the wonderful Allan Lake. Part 1 is, of course, available now, so it kind of makes sense to listen to that one first. But if you are fully up to date, then get ready to hear how he nearly got a radio station evicted from their studios, losing his dream job, and we get pretty deep when he opens up about the tragic loss of a great friend and co-presenter. Let's crunch and roll.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's bring it back up. Let's go to Invicta FM to do weekends. How did that move come about?
Well, it was a simple case of your producer, Simon, right, and my producer, Simon. For some reason, I think they put him in charge of the radio station for a bit. I had no idea why they'd ever do that. I mean, seriously. But no, obviously, because he's an amazing talent. And he gave me a Sunday slot, and that was really kind, nice bit of charity on his behalf. I was still at that point, obviously, where I'd do anything to be on air, because I was living in Cardiff at the time. It was a long, old haul to go to Kent from Cardiff. It was good fun, you know. He didn't go on at me too much. He let me stay in his place.
He can be quite a brutal producer, can't he? I love this because he's obviously listening whilst we're recording this, and he's just probably doing a certain hand gesture at this very moment. So let's go on to Red Dragon. So is this because you're living in Wales that you go for the job there?
Yeah, no, I kind of got the order messed up there. I think because from Capital Disney, I did some cover work at Invicta before Simon got there, so I was doing some weekend stuff. And then I went to Cardiff. So the Invicta stuff was after this. I've messed up the timeline. I do apologise on behalf of myself and everyone listening. So I was. This is the weird thing. I'd moved from Capital Disney to its sister station, Core, and they decided that they were going to shut it down. And they did that with a lot of the digital stations at the time. They were very expensive to run, and they didn't have a lot of listeners. So I was fired, but I was still able to talk to people in the building. I wasn't kind of booted out. I was kind of like helped along my way. So I'm trying to think of his name. Steve Orchard, right? So Steve Orchard was really high up at GCAP at the time. At Christmas party once, he came up to me. And I thought, what's he coming up to me for? And he said, I just want to tell you, my daughter, she loves you. Right? I was like, really? He was like, my daughter, she was, I don't know, teenager at the time, loves listening to your show. I thought, yes, come on, I'll use this at some point. And I did use it at some point. And I spoke to Steve, and he got me a couple of interviews at some of the other radio stations in the group. And I had the strangest decision to make, because I'd done some demos to co-host Breakfast on Power FM, right?
Oh.
Yes, I know. And that was a really exciting prospect. But I was also offered the evening show on Red Dragon at the same time. And I don't know what it was, but I thought, I've never been good with co-hosts that I've just been put with, you know? I've organically made co-hosts out of T-boys and producers, you know? And it was that put me off. Nothing to do with the person who it was, but it put me off going to Power FM. I remember the program director at the time was like, what? You don't want the job? You're going to, what? Yeah. You're going to go to an evening show in Wales. But yeah, and I'm glad I did. It was really, you know, I love Cardiff and I love the Welsh, and it was a good, fun place to be. I could push the boundaries out. For example, on my first show, I think England were playing Wales in the football.
Jesus, Alan, no.
Yeah. So I start the show by saying, I just want to say here to everyone, we are supporting the boys tonight, and here's a song to cheer them on. And I play 3 lines.
Oh my God.
So yeah, I think a lot of people saw the funny side. people texting in, maybe not, but you know.
What I love about that is that we started this pod by talking about that one text that you get that's negative. I mean, when you play 3 lines, you must have got hundreds of texts that are negative. That must have really spun you sideways.
Yeah, it did, but I kind of expected it. You know,
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I kind of thought
You were asking for it.
Yeah, I thought if I'm going to do this show, I need to find out if the boss is going to fire me. So I'll just, on the first day, I will do something that pushes the boundaries. And I didn't get fired. I thought, I can work here for a while, you know. This will be good fun.
Who was the boss at the time then?
Gavin Marshall was in charge. And he took a chance on me, which is good because I had a really, really fun time there doing the evening show. I knew it wasn't going to last forever because I knew that all the other radio stations in the group were slowly moving to the network evening show, but they kept Wales because of, it being Wales. And I think there was regulations at the time. They kept it local in the evenings. And I think there was only a couple of evening shows in the whole of the Capital Group. And that was one of them. But it was fun. I got to interview loads of different people. I was kind of out of my comfort zone because I had to do like the interviews with the stars, which I'd never really done before. Recorded, edited and all that. Whereas used to just throw people on the air and see how it rolls. But it kind of taught me a lot. It really did. It taught me that you can record stuff, you edit it, spruce it up a little bit. And it doesn't mean that you're not, a talent just because you've edited out a lot of ums and ahs and all this. It was really, really good fun. Really good fun.
I've been prompted to ask you about the cow story.
Well, I've got a couple of stories to tell you about Red Dragon. But the cow story. So I started at one of the shows. I've been there for a couple of years. I started one of the shows and I wanted a cup of tea. So the tea boy, right, said, we got no milk. So I went on the air, top of hour, we haven't got any milk here. Anyone bring us some milk? Someone please bring us some milk because we don't have any milk. And this guy called up from the West Country, right, was listening to Red Dragon because you know how far that signal went. And he said, I'll tell you what, I can do you one better. I can bring you a cow. You can milk it. And I thought, yeah, go on then. Yeah, you're going to do that. So Red Dragon was based in the Red Dragon Centre, which, if you don't know it, it's a cinema in a bowling alley. It's a place where lots of people are, especially in the evening. About an hour into the show, I got a phone call from this guy and he said, I'm nearly there. And I was like, oh my God, please say you're not bringing a cow to the radio station. So I, in my wisdom, went on the air and went, I can't believe this, but he's actually bringing a cow to the radio station. And as this, I don't know what it was, he was kind of towing the cow in this cowmobile, I guess. And he brought it to the front of the radio station. And there was a crowd out there. People who had heard it decided that they were going to come down and see the cow.
That's amazing, mate.
Yeah. So the cow was there and I was out there live talking to people about, look, there's a cow here. Should we milk it? Did a bit of milking. And then someone texted in the radio station and said, Alan, did you know that a cow can walk upstairs, but it can't walk back down? So I was like, let's get it in the building, right? Let's get it in and see if it can go up. Now, security for the place had come at this point, tapping me on the shoulder whilst I'm on the air, saying, you got to stop this now. You got to stop this, right? You can't do this. We're not allowed to do this. It's breaking all types of regulations. You've got to stop it, right? Obviously I didn't. Then I thought, let's get this cow into the radio station, see if we can get it up some stairs, Luckily, the cow's arse was too fat to be able... Can you say that about a cow? I don't want to, I've learned a lot from being Sean McManus. So I couldn't get the cow into the building. It was too wide. So we didn't do that. And the cow went, and there was quite a lot of cow mess. I'm not going to lie, like a bit of straw, a bit of cow poo. and all that. I got a call from the head of marketing the next day, going ballistic at me, saying, "I can't believe you've done this. We've had so much grief today." Apparently the building had the radio station had its lease kind of looked at. They were trying to scare the management by saying, "Yeah, we're going to have to look at your lease because, this is just outrageous." And I had to pay, I think, £100 to have someone come and clean up the cow mess and all that. And I remember saying to the boss, "It's the best £100 I think I've ever spent in my whole entire life." It really was. And that was fun. I didn't get fired for that. No,
Well done,
that was
mate,
nice.
well done.
We used to. Do you remember Big Ginger Lee?
I've got Big Ginger Lee written down. I was going to bring him up at some point. This was he, because he was like a character. Actually, I think that's probably the wrong word. He was as he was, wasn't he? He didn't put anything on.
No, he was. I'm talking about like he's dead. He's still alive.
Is he still alive? Thank God for that.
Yeah. He was a character. He was a good friend, and I met him at college on the Isle of Wight, and he had a slight interest in radio, and he'd do anything I told him to do. So I used to let him traipse behind me, and it was really good because, when we go out drinking and stuff, I'm the type of person, I was saying this to the missus, right? I'd stand at the bar for about 10 minutes. Everyone else gets served around me like, excuse me, send in Big Ginger Lee, he'll sort it out. But he was good on the radio as well because he would do whatever we told him to do. And I was working with Paul Kay. He was the program controller at the time. And he used to give me some good ideas of stuff that we can do. We got offered interviews that I just didn't want to do, right? For example, Leslie Grantham, Dirty Den. We got offered him. He was talking about being in a play. So what we did is we did a feature called Fake Lake, right? Where Big Ginger Lee would pretend to be Allan Lake. So he'd go into the studio and pretend to be me. And we would talk to him in his talkback, which only obviously he would hear. And we'd feed him lines and all that. And we asked him to ask Dirty Den, Leslie Grantham, what it felt like to be a murderer. Because, I don't know if you remember, because he was done for murder.
Yeah.
He was done for murder. So he just walked straight out. It was brilliant. I don't think he said any more than hi. And then said F this and walked out. So that was fun. A bit on there. And Slugs as well. Yeah, that was a classic Fake Lake. This was a phone call with Slugs from Madness. Right?
Suggs,
that's it. Right. Do you know why I'm saying it wrong? Right, here we go.
Okay.
So, Big Ginger Lee was being Fake Leg. And we said you got to refer to him as Slugs the whole time.
Nice.
Yes, Slugs. That's why I got it in my head. Slugs. Just call him Slugs. And we thought, I'd see how many minutes he would be able to do this for. 1 minute. 1 minute. He's like, Slugs. It's like, all right, Slugs. Every single time. So bits like that were fun. I had to do some of the interviews to keep the record companies happy, so they keep sending us, the bigger names.
We're having a party. Oh yeah.
So Red Dragon, fired or not fired?
I was fired.
Fired
for networking. Yeah, they brought in the network show, so it wasn't for anything in particular.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was. I knew it was coming, and it came, and it was gutting because I really enjoyed doing that show. I mean, I remember being out in a nightclub once, and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, you're the cowman, aren't you?" And you'd get stuff like that in Cardiff. People would listen and they recognise you because we were on posters and stuff, or we were on the side of the radio station as people would walk through the Red Dragon Centre. They'd see all the presenters and stuff, so they kind of knew what we looked like. And I enjoyed that. So yeah, when that went, I was gutted. And again, this time living in Wales and not really knowing what to do. And I did various shows, cover shows. I did some stuff on Kerrang. I think at this point I was working at Evicted with Simon as well, doing a weekend show.
Yeah.
So I was picking up work here, there. But it was it was nothing permanent, and it was just a nightmare. You know, am I going to be able to pay the rent this month? And I think I've been awful with money. I've always been absolutely awful with money. So to have such a limited budget anyway, and to live off it was just terrible. It was just really hard. So I was really searching for something full time. And at that point, XFM in Cardiff, I mean, it was there for about a year, I think. It was sold to Town and Country Broadcasting, and they renamed it Nation Radio. And I ended up doing some cover there, and the guy who was kind of in charge of the radio station, and did a lot of the other bits there as well. A guy called Ben Evans, who I used to work with in London, managed to wangle it so I could do the breakfast show. And that was really good fun. It was really good fun. It was in the morning. I really toned it down for that show, to be honest with you. But we did lots of calls, and we'd have, you know, when you did a topic in Wales, people would really react. You didn't have to try so hard, you know. So yeah, that was good fun, and I wasn't fired from there.
Well done, mate. Well done.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
The next station, Q Radio. So do you move across to there?
I think I'm working there at the time.
Okay.
I was doing that show. I think it was voice tracking it from Wales, and it was a Saturday morning show, and it's quite weird because Q was all about playing, you know, weird songs and album tracks and all that. I had no idea of any of the songs really. I had no idea what I was playing, but I just went with it, you know. And it was. I really hated voice tracking because I was rubbish at it, because I always felt like I needed to have some sort of communication with the audience. Otherwise, it's just me on my own, and I just never felt like I did a good job. So it was difficult for me to do, but you know, I think it was still fun, and I did a half decent job of it, definitely.
One of your many skills was callers, so to pre-record makes it tough then, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, it really does. And I think things like that really put me out of my comfort zone, but were really good. And I really didn't say no to any show that came my way. Probably couldn't say no, mate, to be honest with you. But I think on that, I thought, well, I am doing live calls and stuff on Nation and, you know, whatever else I was doing at the time. So, you know, I'm going to give this a go. And I did, and I managed to kind of like talk about stuff and stories without having to have some sort of like interaction with it, which is good. You know, again, it was a learning curve, but, you know, something good came of it. I learned that I don't actually need the phones permanently to be ringing.
Next, let's move on to Absolute. What an absolute corker. So this is where your relationship with Clive comes in. So he's obviously a big fan, and he gets you into Absolute.
Well, I don't know if he's a big fan, but he definitely was very helpful to me. I had done a few shows for him at Juice. I'd also done some shows for him in Oxford on, I don't remember what it's called, FM 107.9 or something it was called.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that. And nothing really permanent, but because I just don't think there was the budget. But I like working with him because he wouldn't go on at me. You know, he would let me do my thing. Occasionally, he would pop up, both at Juice and at FM 107.9. He'd pop up on MSN. We used to have MSN in the studio, and he'd be like, "Yeah, that bit was funny," and like, "Why don't you try doing this?" And that kind of thing. You'd feel that is quite daunting, wouldn't you? Like having the boss having an open communication with you. And he did an absolute, got a couple of emails whilst I was on the air. But the way that he approached things was smashing, really, because you didn't feel like, oh, the boss is listening. I don't know what to do now, you know? It was only ever helpful. And when he took over Absolute or Virgin it was, I got in touch and I said, I really, 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 really want a gig. And he said, I'm going to see what I can do. And he ended up giving me a couple of evenings when it was still Virgin. I think I did maybe late on a weekend. So I could say that I was on Virgin, which was nice, for a week. And then when it became Absolute, I started doing the midnight till 4 o'clock slot. And it was my dream job. It's all I ever wanted was a national radio show, like doing something like that. A show after dark, a big radio station, people to talk to in the studio because we had a producer and someone would be taking the phone calls and finding out what people want to say and putting them through. So we had a little bit of order to it, but still it was that kind of like pushing the boundaries type thing. And it was really, really enjoyable. I loved it. I was in my element there, mate. I never wanted to leave that radio station. So when I fucked it up, it was gutting. It really was.
Let's get on to how you messed that one up, because I don't even need to ask the question fired or not fired. It was fired. But do you know one thing? Just talking to you tonight and recording your episode of Crunch and Roll is you've worked on Capital, you've worked on Absolute. We've talked about how you are a fairly shy guy. I never sense any nerves about starting at any station. I've spoken to previous guests, and even myself, when I went to BRMB, I shit myself. I thought, I'm not good enough to be here. But I've not sensed that with you at all.
It's the only thing I was ever half decent at, mate. Like, when I was on the radio, when I am on the radio, I feel like I am me, and I'm doing my thing, and this is what I live, and this is what I breathe. So I would have nerves, when I was starting somewhere to a certain extent, new people and all that. I really, really always struggled with meeting new people. But getting on the air, as soon as I opened that microphone, then, I was in my element. I really, really was. I struggled not being on the radio. The hours that I wasn't on the radio, the 20 hours of the day that I wasn't on Absolute, I just didn't know what to do with myself, So yeah, it's a strange thing, nerves. I had nerves talking to you at the beginning today. I have put this off a little bit. But I was nervous about doing it. But then after about 5 minutes of talking to you, I feel fine, Yeah. So I always had that in my head that I know that after 5 minutes of doing a new show, you're going to be fine.
Because you must have had some kind of confidence in your ability, which, rightly so. Because the reason you must have had confidence in my head is because you walked into a lot of radio stations and did things very differently to others that were already there. So, that in itself, I personally would have been like, oh, hi, I'm John, I'm going to be doing this, and it's a little bit radical. But for you, you must have had that confidence to think, do you know what? I believe in myself. I'm going to go and do it.
Yeah, I was confident in my ability, sometimes misplaced because, when you do something that you really want to do and you see it as like, this is the pinnacle of life, when you do it, you can get an ego. You definitely can get an ego. And I've really struggled with that over the years to a certain extent because I know that I can do what I do, and I know I'm good at doing what I do. When I'm on a good day, I'm good at doing it. So yeah, I felt confident enough that I didn't care what the other radio jocks were going to say or what they're going to think, because I was in there to do a job and I was going to do the job. It's a really strange thing because anything outside of radio I would have no confidence in whatsoever. But yeah, as I said before, media and radio, it's a strange beast, mate. It really is.
Yeah, it is. But I really admire that part of you. I think it's very admirable.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right, let's get on to how you got fired or not fired. Definitely fired. How did you get fired from Absolute?
Well, I slept with the boss's wife and he wasn't too happy about it. Sorry about that, Clive. No, it wasn't that entertaining, to be honest with you.
For legal reasons, that's not true.
That didn't happen.
For the tape, that's not true.
It's not like he can find me twice.
But he could sue our podcast.
That didn't happen. I apologise for myself. I never slept with any boss's wives.
And there's Allan Lake being on air. That's the Allan that I remember.
I don't know where it comes from. But, yeah, so I... see, this is annoying more than anything because I was saying on the air that I wanted to give up smoking, right? And this company called Smart Smoker, they were bringing out, do you remember the original electronic cigarettes that actually looked like cigarettes? Yeah, and they had these little cartridges. So they were like, I'm going to send you a bunch of these. And I got one and I thought, this is amazing. This is great. And I was smoking it in the studio, mate. It was, I felt like, once again, chocolate, doing a radio show that I love doing. And I was puffing away, even in between breathing, whilst doing a link, I had this thing on the go. And I said, I can't remember exactly what it was, that, this product from Smart Smoker is one of the best things ever. It's what you need to give up smoking. You need this. This thing will help you, and this thing will get you off the cigarettes, And it wasn't in those exact words. I've tried to block it out over the years, mate, to be honest with you. And it wasn't, that's not such a huge thing, but it was a massive fuck up because you can't make statements about health products like that on the radio. You can't. So the radio station got a complaint about it. And I was still there for quite a few months whilst they were, waiting for Ofcom to come back and see what, they would say. And I don't know if Ofcom for some reason didn't uphold it. I don't know if I would have still been there. I really don't know. But it ended up after a few months of being pulled in on a Friday. And this was gutting really because I was quite close with Clive Dickens, and he was a bit of a mentor. But he was definitely a mentor. And he pulled me in, and he'd already had a chat with me about it, and basically said, why would you do this? Why would you try and mess up your show and do this? So after a few months, I came in. The verdict was in from Ofcom, and I remember it. I'll never forget it because I was on the second floor of the Absolute building, and I got told to come in, and there was like a glass room, right? So it was in the programming department. So there was loads of people buzzing around in the programming department, and I went into this glass room, and I was sat down by Clive and the program director and told, you shouldn't have done this. You did this. It's been upheld. You've broken all the rules. Yada, yada, yada. Here's a piece of paper that says that we're letting you go. You're fired, and all that. And I remember I was so upset. I was crying. It was awful because it was my dream and I just couldn't believe that I'd messed it up. And also what really nagged me was Clive had given me quite a lot of chances. And I never really messed anything up before for him. And I felt like I really let him down, which is really weird because he was the one firing me. But, he had good reason. And it was really difficult for me to get work after that for a while. Radio Today, their headline was Lake Up in Smoke, which I thought was quite entertaining, actually, to be honest with you. But yeah, so I was fired and I was in this glass room. I had to leave this glass room with loads of people in the pregnant department. They all knew what had gone on in there. I had red face and it was just awful. It was such an awful thing. I caused it, but Clive, next time if you ever find me again, take me to the pub or something, take me to the pub, to a Holiday Inn and give me a pint, right? And tell me over that. But no, I deserved it. I messed it up, and there we go. That was that. And I'd send demos out, and people just wouldn't get back to me after that. Really? I mean, it was difficult to get any work. Really difficult.
So where did Fire Radio come from?
Well, Fire Radio. Can we talk porn before we talk about Fire Radio?
Of course.
Right. So I was messing around doing some stuff online, some shows, and I messaged Now, let me explain this to you. You probably never heard of RedTube, right? This is the point where you say yes, and I laugh at you for looking at porn.
No, I know exactly what it is, yeah.
Right.
This,
okay,
I remember somebody telling me that you'd gone into this side of entertainment, and I thought this was incredible.
Well, so I think I had emailed them and said, we're doing this this online show thing and would like to sponsor it. And they're like, no. We don't want to do that. Because I thought it'd be quite cool to be sponsored by a porn site. But they said, but we tuned in, and how would you like to come and do some work for us? So I ended up writing their blog, and it was really well paid. It wasn't in radio, which was hard. It was the first thing I think I'd done that wasn't in radio. I'm not a great writer either. I'm dyslexic, so it was a complete nightmare. It had to be rewritten a lot of times by various other people to actually make sense. But it was good. It was really good fun. I ended up moving on from writing the blog to interviewing porn stars, right? So yeah, I mean, it was really, really weird. I got a text message off my brother one night, and my brother Charlie said, "Bro, I was about to have a wank, and your face just popped up on a banner on RedTube promoting your blog. Thanks for that." I was like, "Well, I am sorry." So I ruined that for him, but it was great. But the thing is, I got good money, and I started partying every weekend, and I wasn't enjoying what I was doing. It was okay, but I really wanted to be working in radio, and I started getting drunk every weekend. I got quite heavy into drugs as well.
Really?
Yeah. It was really bad. And people, bipolar and drugs don't go well. Let me just tell you this: they don't go well at all. And I was a complete mess. I'm not going to lie. It was a strange time. But I do have videos on YouTube, because a lot of the blog stuff will go on YouTube I've got one on there that has 10 million views. Not like I check it or anything like that, but it has 10 million views. I mean, I would never get that in radio, but a lot of people are like, yeah, that's amazing. But I always found that as a negative thing, and not because people were seeing me doing porn. It was because people were liking me for something other than radio. And I just wanted to do radio. I just didn't, but I was having fun with porn stars, and we were, messing around, and I was kind of doing the Allan Lake type stuff. And I made some good friends there as well. One of my besties, Stu Levine, he was a co-host for a show that I did online, and he's an American guy, and we did a lot of stuff in America. So we got friendly. He became my cameraman, and so I met a really good friend out doing that. But it was the whole people only know me for this now. And when I'd be partying at a weekend, I'd meet new people, and someone would say, "You know what he does for a living, don't you?" And that's all they wanted to talk about, mate. Yeah. That's all they wanted to talk about, not radio anymore. And, I never wanted to be on the TV. I never wanted to do anything but radio. Radio is the only thing I wanted to do. So, yeah, it was bittersweet, I guess, in a way, because I had money. But, money is not everything. It's not a lot, to be honest with you. It really isn't.
Cunty,
we apologise, sir. We just play records till 8, 9. When do we finish?
I'm not drunk. I've had a couple of drinks. I'm not drunk.
Oh, yeah.
So, Fire Radio, how did that come about?
So, I literally, after years of trying, I couldn't even get arrested. Do you know what I mean? I could not get back on the radio. And I messaged a friend who said, well, you want to try this guy, Gareth, who is a really close friend of mine now, but he was running Fire Radio. He owned Fire Radio. And I went in there for a chat, and he liked what I did. And we talked for like hours and hours about what I did. And he had ideas about how I could still do what I wanted to do, but could maintain a career. And a lot of that was by giving me a gig. And I started doing drive time on the radio station. And that was a game changer for me because I finally feel like I figured it out, you know? I was doing this slightly edgy stuff, but I was making people laugh. I was doing fun things on the text. And, you know, it was for what is, you know, quite a small radio station. You know, you'd do a show and you'd get like 100, 150 text messages, and you'd be able to do a lot with that. And I've voice tracked some stuff there as well. So when I moved to doing the breakfast show, I used to do like the first couple of hours live, and I used to voice track the next couple of hours. Don't tell Gareth that though, because I think he thought I was actually there. Yeah, it was good because I actually learned how to do voice tracking better as well. And that, once again, I could voice track a radio show without communication from listeners and actually still sound half decent, you know? So yeah, Fire was really, really good. And like I say, I've made a good friend out of that too. And was I fired from there?
Fired or not fired from Fire?
Well, it got sold to Celador Radio and fired. I would say fired. It was a bit complex, mate. But without going into the boring details, because they are boring, I think fired, mate. I think I put that down as fired. Yeah.
All right, let's move on. So BRMB did some cover in 2012-ish. I want to move on because the next station is your own. You start your own radio station.
Well, I actually started working with Gareth from Fire on some ideas that he had, and these were his radio stations, but I worked on a lot of the concept with him.
Okay.
So we had 100% Dragon hits, and we had 100% whatever. And he owned those radio stations, but he kind of put me in charge of the programming to a certain extent.
Right.
And I learned a lot of because I have always been into the geeky stuff, and I learned a lot of the technology stuff and, the things that actually make it come out of the other end, and building a brand as well. So working with him on that was really, really good. And I did the drive show on Dragon Hits, and I did the breakfast show on 100% whatever. And my co-host was Stu Levine, the American guy who had moved to London, actually.
Right.
And it was a really fun show. But this is where it gets a little bit dark, if you don't mind.
No, it's fine.
So Stu overdosed whilst he was a co-host of the show. Not on air, but he overdosed. He died of an overdose.
Wow.
And I know, I've really brought it down now, mate, haven't I?
No, it's fine, mate. It's fine. I appreciate you being so honest.
Yeah. His wife called me one day, and his wife would never call me. I mean, we weren't friends. She called me and she said, Stu's gone. And I was like, gone where? Gone? Like, no, he's dead. And yeah, he had overdosed, and I didn't see it coming, but I had felt on the air when we were doing the shows that he wasn't sounding his normal self, but I just thought maybe, he'd smoke some weed or something like that. I didn't really know what was going on, and for years, and still now, I feel like I should have known what was going on, and had I have done something about it, because we were such close friends, could I have done something about it? Could I have pulled him up on it? But I don't know. It was devastating. I just stopped doing shows on 100% whatever after that. It was one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, to be honest with you, because he was such a close friend, and he was just gone. He was absolutely gone. It went on to me having a complete and utter mental breakdown over it. It was really bad.
Wow. I mean,
where'd you go from that then, Foxy?
I've got a joke here about two men in a bar. I appreciate you being honest. I mean, how do you ever get over something like that? I don't know.
No, it's difficult. It's just time, I guess. But I kind of hooked myself with him on the radio, and we did this whole thing. And we worked really well, I thought. And that was gone, right? Yeah. So the thing I love doing for a living had gone. One of my best friends had gone. And it was just horrible. It was just horrible. It just makes you realize, though, how brittle life is, and how one day someone, it sounds cheesy, but someone can be there, and you think, well, he's not going to go anywhere, and then they're gone.
Gone the next day.
Yeah, never to return.
I mean, how long did you take to move on to your present venture? Was it? What are we talking years?
Yeah. A while. I wasn't really doing much radio at all. I was working at Free Radio, doing Sunday on the what was the radio? Was it Black Country?
Free Radio, Black Country.
The area?
Yeah.
So it's the Black Country kind of extension of that, and I did Sunday mornings on there, which was really fun, to be honest with you. And it was, again, I was doing. You know what it was like working at Free. It wasn't the type of place where you could go on and be full-blown Allan Lake. But by this point, I'd actually learned to tone it down when I needed to turn it down, and turn it up when I needed to turn it up. It was fun. And the thing is, I had no other work in radio as well, so I kind of put everything into it. It was good. And at that point as well, I was doing other stuff outside of radio. I've always had an interest in things like communications and telecoms and all that. So I started working on an MVNO, right? Basically a mobile network running off another mobile network. I played with that idea for a while, and I managed to have some success with it. And it was really weird because I was making most of my money from not doing radio. And the only other time I'd done that was when I was working for RedTube. So it was quite strange. And eventually, I think, again, networking came in, and I lost that show. But I knew, they were upfront with me there. I knew that it was going to be coming at some point. So it was all right. It wasn't a major kind of thing in my life. But at that point, I really got the radio bug back, I think. And I wanted to do more stuff on air. So I came up with a couple of ideas. I launched All Hits and Giggles, which is a radio station on DAB. And basically it's a bit like the Jack format, where we're playing songs for 35 up, but in between we've got jokes and funny bits and all that.
Yeah.
And I did a show on there, and I still do a show on there, and it was an idea that I come up with, and I got it so wrong so many times, but eventually molded it into actually something that I really enjoy doing. And I really like running and owning a radio station, not so I can say, I own a radio station, because I literally do it all on my own when it comes to the programming and all that, and all the management of it. And I really enjoyed doing it. It took up a lot of time. So what I really needed was not another radio station to run. So then when the local community radio station around here was about to go off air because they had financial issues, obviously I put an offer in and ended up taking over the company that has the license for that, which I really didn't need in my life. But I was so glad I did it, because once again, being a geek, and mate, I got to go up to a transmitter on a hill. My God. I was only meant to be there for 5 minutes, but I was there just staring at my transmitter for a good maybe an hour. Just thinking, I own that transmitter. Yeah. That's what I love about radio, mate. I love the fact you can say something in a room and it go to a hill and then beam out. And the thing is, it doesn't really matter to me how many people are listening. Just the idea that my voice could be picked up anywhere in that area and heard, or the radio station, was, and is a big thing for me. I really still love that now.
I think you just made a lot of people listening to this episode very horny, talking about
Yeah, definitely.
the voice going up the transmitter to ears.
Oh, yeah.
So all hits and giggles, Sanity Radio. If people want to find out more, Alan, where do they need to go?
They can go to allhits.co.uk. And we currently have the local license for North Somerset as well, the community license, which we're about to do some cool things with and rebrand.
One thing I do want to ask before you go, who do you admire in radio?
I think I admire still Alex Dyke, who was my inspiration on Isle of Wight Radio. He was a taskmaster to work for. He really was. But he just did what he wanted to do, and that inspired me. And he entertained people. He was Marmite. People would talk about him and be like, "Oh God, he's an arsehole. He's this, he's that." People not in radio, just people on the Isle of Wight, and that was cool, because they'd still listen to him, even if they did think he was that. And I thought, oh, you can still be a bit of a twat sometimes, and people will still tune in. So that was cool. And I mean, I think a big inspiration for me, not so much an inspiration, but someone that I look up to is Chris Evans. I've always liked what he does. I like how he does quite a lot of personality, but he doesn't have to do the kind of like edgy stuff, not anymore anyway.
The shocking stuff, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do that, and he can hold a crowd. And I just think, he's a legend, isn't he? So yeah, I think I would put him up there. I'd put Chris Evans up there with Alex Dyke. Alex would be very happy to hear this, that he's up there with Chris Evans, I'm telling you.
Do you know what, Alan? Thank you so much for your time and being on Crunch and Roll. I know you were hesitant to start, and we beat you down, and you've agreed to come on, which has just been wonderful. I think you've been really honest, which is a lot of guests are honest, which is just, we love that. We just want the honesty and the memories, the fun stuff. And of course, as this podcast has grown, it's kind of more and more people are talking about the high points, of course, but the low points in our careers, which we all go through, but we rarely talk about, which I think is just as important. But your honesty has been amazing. I think it's that honesty which has made you such a good presenter, because when you were on air, you were just being honest. You were just being yourself. And again, I go back to the point of when you walked into Viking, you went on air and I listened. I was like, what the hell is it? It was fantastic. That's what it bloody was. And thank you so much for being on Crunch and Roll.
Thank you, mate. I know. I really appreciate you having me on. I've really enjoyed myself.
All right. Alan, would you do us the honours, please, of taking us away with the end credits?
Yes. You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Allan Lake. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as they drop. Crunch and Roll is a 969 Media production presented by John Fox and produced by Simon Wachowski. What a stupid name.